Inspired by Skyrim, Tainted Grail: The Fall of Avalon is a new open-world dark fantasy RPG that releases today on Steam. So if you're waiting for the Elder Scrolls 6 until your hair turns gray, this game might just give you the fix you need. Again, I want to emphasize that this is a PC game, not a mobile game and not a gacha game. I played Tainted Grail: The Fall of Avalon for about 12 hours this week, and in this video I'll be reviewing the game to show off the combat, quests, exploration, lore, and storytelling. I want to give a big shout out to the developers Awaken Realms for sponsoring this video and providing a review code so I could play the game a few days early. So without further ado, let's dive right in. For this review, I want to focus on 4 pillars of the game that stood out to me most while playing: the lore and storytelling, the quests and characters, world design and art style, and the surprisingly excellent voice acting.
This place is already crawling with your lot. It's like a Camelocian privy after a feast. In my day, you only saw old familiar faces round here. And maybe we didn't all love each other. But a local is a local.
Are you really asking me if I believe that some shadowy people in Camelot resurrect King Arthur whenever they need him, and then fling him back into his tomb when they don't? Trust me, no matter what Caradoc claims, Wyrdness cannot bring back the dead. The only thing it can bring is misery.
First, let's dive into the basic premise of the game. Tainted Grail is set in the Kingdom of Avalon several hundred years after the death of King Arthur. The land is torn apart by a plague known as the Red Death and a mysterious fog known as the Wyrdness, which mutates men and makes them lose their minds. You start your journey in a typical Elder Scrolls fashion as a prisoner without a scrap of gear or coin to your name. But fortunately, a Giga Chad rogue type breaks you out of the slammer. On your way out, you'll encounter a mysterious spectral being from another plane who convinces you / forces you to smuggle it out of its prison in exchange for granting you some magical skills, such as the ability to slow down time in combat. More on that later. Tainted Grail is reminiscent of Skyrim in many ways. The HUD, the first-person perspective, the items and weapons, the lockpicking, the open world, and the goofy characters.
And I woke up with my pants down, surrounded by gobshites in the red. I was fighting with my bare ass hanging out, and I still managed to kill a dozen of them. Useless knobs.
But the setting and storytelling set this game apart, particularly with the quest structure and lore. After breaking out of prison and sailing away from the island asylum, the first major place you're likely to visit is the military keep in the southern zone of Avalon, which has a boatload of NPCs to meet and quests to pick up. On the surface, most of these quests seemed like simple fetch and kill quests, which immediately triggered my "aw shit, here we go again" feeling when it comes to RPGs. I was half expecting the next NPC I spoke with to be like, "Those blasted bandits absconded with my family sword and holed up in a nearby cave. Retrieve it for me and I'll give you 200 gold pieces." But I was pleasantly surprised to discover that most of these quests have a lot more going on than initially meets the eye. For instance, you'll meet a soldier named Sigibald, who immediately seems to know you, even though you've never met before. He tasks you with retrieving some official documents from the tavern, which he supposedly misplaced in a drunken stupor one evening. When you visit the innkeep, he seems confused as to why you'd want those documents and is reluctant to part with them, saying that they are the last memento of his dearly departed friend. And in an M. Night Shyamalan Sixth Sense style twist, it turns out that the quest giver was dead all along, and he fades away into a specter like that Nilesy Niles meme. A lot of the quests also explore the tension between the local southerners and newly arriving refugees fleeing the Red Death plague in the north. One keeper asks you to deliver a bouquet of flowers as a token of sympathy to a refugee whose husband was falsely accused of theft and executed. But when you deliver the flowers to her, this is how she reacts.
What? How dare you? Do you know the meaning of those flowers in that configuration? Revenge. Revenge, deception, and death. There's nothing nice about it, and I don't know if he did it on purpose or if he's just an idiot. But trust me, it's not a nice gesture.
I was a bit surprised by this reaction. A seemingly innocuous throwaway quest ended up building up a lot more lore about the struggles of the locals and the refugees, taking a rather sinister turn in the end.
So, the bitch understood the meaning, yes? I'm glad. They all should be scared shitless. Even more so after Cole got hanged. Congratulations on your powers of observation. Those vagrants should know that since they live on our dime, they also live by our mercy. I can do anything to them, and they can't do shit. My plan was perfect.
I could go on, but I don't want to spoil too many of these quests so that you can experience them for yourselves. Almost every quest in this game has some deeper layer to discover beyond the initial task you're given, and I really like that about this game. The graphics in the game are nothing to write home about. This is an indie game after all, but I really like the dark and gritty art style and the twisted creatures and structures reminiscent of Elden Ring. The combat in Tainted Grail can be punishing, with many basic enemies hitting hard enough to kill you in 2 or 3 hits. I died a lot, especially in the beginning of the game. It's important to stock up on food and healing items, and make use of parrying and dodging to avoid incoming damage. Tainted Grail also has a lot of elements of survival games. Important resources like arrows are incredibly scarce and expensive to buy from vendors, so I found myself avoiding combat with some enemies to avoid wasting resources. Monsters and mutants were typically good to avoid because they don't drop valuable loot in most cases. However, it can be worth the risk to take on bandits and other human enemies, since they can drop weapons and armor, some of which will be better than whatever gear you've managed to cobble together. I fell into my typical Skyrim playstyle of stealth archery, as ranged options were generally a safer bet. But I also played around with magic and some of the various melee weapons, like the Gladius longsword.
You're only making me angrier! Is that all you've got? I'll make you pay for that!
One thing that really sets Tainted Grail's combat apart from games like Skyrim is the time warp ability, which allows you to slow down time in combat and get in some extra hits, like David running around with the Sandy in Cyberpunk Edgerunners. After playing this game for 12 hours, this project has me really excited, and I personally want to see this game succeed. I plan to play a bunch more this weekend after I've posted this video. If you'd like to check out the game for yourself, Tainted Grail: The Fall of Avalon launches today in early access on Steam. Click on the link in the description to check out the game on Steam right now. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to Big Dan Gaming for more RPG videos and reviews. Until next time, this has been Big Dan. I should go.